Today I'm going to tell you how life is for the youth in United States compared to here in Sweden. I'll look into the differences between youth depending on which ethnicity, sexual orientation, or gender they are born into. When I first started my research around the differences between Sweden and USA, I found the abortion laws strikingly different. Through the entire country, you can find a lack of social acceptance regarding abortions, and occasionally you can even find people protesting outside of abortion clinics. The abortion laws in USA varies in different states, and in 11 of them they have banned abortion. In some states more thoroughly than others, even though abortion is something that can be seen as healthcare. Banning abortion has consequences like too young motherhood, where the mothers are children themselves, and several other negative effects also take shape when abortion is illegal. Getting pregnant as a teenage girl is something that impacts your entire life, and even if you don't get pregnant, the abortion law still affect you as a teenager in USA. In Sweden, on the other hand, we have access to free abortion if you're under the age of 18, and the Swedish residents are also more accepting of abortion, and there's a much lower percentual amount of Swedes against abortion. Even though this is something that mostly concerns girls, it also affects boys because they can become fathers at a very young age. The reason for the strict abortion law I connect to the high percent of religious Americans, and USA is a much more religious country than Sweden, and therefore, depending on which state you find yourself, it can be everything between 33% at the lowest up to 77% of the population in the different states that identify themselves as religious. The religion in Sweden is not something that plays as big role in the society, and Sweden are known as the least religious country in the whole Western world. Adults that are born into a religious family or live in a society where religion is important get influenced by that, and it shapes their lifestyle in many different ways. As I already mentioned, it affects your ability to get an abortion, but it also affects you in ways of thinking and what you believe is morally right versus wrong. Depending on which echelon of religious your family is, it affects your upbringing on many different levels. That meaning that the upbringing could be very diverse from how many Swedes' upbringing look like, because many Swedes identify themselves as non-confessional. The religion is also something that affects you if you're born with another sexual orientation than straight. Gay marriage is something we have legalized here in Sweden, and in USA they are on the same level as us since June 2015, when the law was permanent. So, if you look at gay privileges from a juristic perspective, USA and Sweden are on the same level. Do we both have legalized it? Although, as I mentioned, the higher existence of religion can have a negative influence, leading to a higher lack of accepting for the gay community in USA. That is because some people that are very religious are not accepting of another sexual orientation than straight. At last, I'm going to make a comparison between if I was born as a native Swede compared to a Native American. And in USA, many Native American are raised and still live on a reservation ranch. And in Sweden, many of our native are residents high up in the northern part of Sweden. The life of a youngster as a native Swede compared to a Native American are very different from each other. And on the Native Americans reservation, they are struggling with many difficulties. And the main problem they have is poverty, which in many ways also are the basis to their other problems. On the reservation, other difficulties they have are a high amount of people suffering from depression, leading to a high number of suicides. They are also struggling with alcohol and drug addictions, a high rate of crimes, and low education, meaning that many high school students don't graduate. These serious amounts of problem depict their society and making the reservation a mostly bad place to live on. I today would, if I was born a Native American, the odds that I today would struggle with one or several of these difficulties are very high. If I, on the other hand, was born a native Swede, the odds are not the same. That is because in the society where the native Swedes live, they don't have an alarming high of numbers of people struggling with the same difficulties as they have on the reservation. With that said, I would have, unfortunately, a much bigger chance of a happy life if I was born a native Swede. Okay, so to sum up, I now understand that two countries that you may think are very similar because they are equally developed. The living condition for the youth, depending on which ethnicity, sexual orientation or gender, can vary very much between the two countries. Thank you.